The California BDR-South Multi-City Film Tour is brought to you by Moto Discovery, specializing in guided and custom tours, adventure training, bike rentals, and travel logistics for all your adventure motorcycling needs since 1981.
So working in R&D at KTM, our goal is always to build the purest off-road adventure bikes on the market. On this trip alone, we have the KTM 1290 Super Adventure R and the KTM 1090 Adventure R. Coming very soon, we will have the KTM 790 Adventure R, which will kind of complete our line of off-road adventures, and I think it's going to be a perfect fit for BDRs long into the future.
Connected.
California has always been about adventure, from the earliest Native Americans who tried to scratch and claw a life out of the rock and the soil, to the Spaniards who, even before our country was formed, had landed on these shores and were exploring the length and breadth of California, all for the glory of Spain and the hopes of finding gold. And then in 1849, when gold was discovered here, a whole new set of adventurers rushed to the state. To today, us, modern-day adventurers. I dare say we probably have some of those same synapses firing in our brains, causing us to constantly want to know, what's over the horizon or what's around the bend. And the great news is that even today, we can still travel the same trails. We can cross the same streams. We can gaze out on the same vistas that the early adventurers to California did. The difference is, today, we get to do it in relative luxury with Gore-Tex and on powerful steeds of steel, alloy, and carbon fiber. So make tracks to California. Come thaw your frozen bones under the glorious warmth of the California sun. Come ride the California BDR-South. And when you do, I guarantee you won't be able to wipe the smile from your face for a month.
Backcountry Discovery Routes is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to create and preserve off-road riding opportunities for dual sport and adventure motorcycles that take you from one border of a state to another border. We typically go from south to north, and once we create that route, we just turn it over to the community for free. You can go to the website, download the GPS tracks, and you can go out and just have the adventure of a lifetime.
The one word that to me describes the organization is inspiration. We make it easy for people to go and explore the backcountry of the United States and go into some of the places of this country you would never be able to go if it wasn't for the BDR.
The California BDR is a route that people could ride in the winter. So this gives another option for people to run BDRs more year-round. They can do the other ones during the summer and then come and do this one in the winter. So the California BDR is going to start in Yuma, Arizona. And then from there, we'll head up north, going through the deserts of California, into the Mojave Preserve, into Death Valley, and then over into the Lone Pine, Big Pine, and Bishop, and then ending at Benton Hot Springs. It's going to be about 6 to 8 day route, depending on how fast you ride, and will be about 850 miles in total.
The Southern California route starts very close to the Mexican border, Yuma, Arizona, as we cross the one-lane oceans-to-oceans bridge that separates Yuma, Arizona from Winter Haven, California. If you're into history at all, I highly recommend stopping in at the Yuma Territorial Prison. We normally think about outlaws of the West being male, but Yuma has some pretty notorious women as well. Two come to mind. One, Pearl Hart. She is purported to be the first and last female stagecoach robber in the West. She was imprisoned there. And then there's a story of Elena Estrada. She apparently found out that her lover was cheating on her, so she stabbed him with his knife, she carved out his heart, and she threw the bloody mess in his face. So when she testified at her trial that he was a heartless bastard, she was both literally and figuratively correct. California is just unique in just the diversity of terrain and opportunity for riders. This route, for example, we start here down by the Mexican border, dry, desolate desert, and we're going to end up north, just a completely different terrain.
Who is adventure riding for? It really is for everybody. Even the guys on the cruiser bikes, I think they ride past a dirt road and wonder where it goes, and adventure bikes give you that freedom to go explore it. And that's the beauty of it for me. You can really go anywhere on these things, and you can load them up, and you can literally ride all the way around the world if you want to.
The first day we passed the All-American Canal. The original canal that was built before the turn of the century actually went into Mexico, and so I think it was in about the 30s that the All-American Canal was built, and it was built entirely on California soil.
In the past, we've always met in the town that's kind of the official starting point. But this year, there is such a great campsite just north, about 20 miles from Yuma, that we're having everyone meet there. From the Backcountry Discovery Routes, we have myself, Paul Gillian, and Ina Thorne. And then he's back, Mr. Justin Bradshaw from Rever.
Why was I invited? I presume just for my good looks and make everybody feel young, since there's just a bunch of old people around here.
I brought your swimsuit for you.
That probably isn't going to make the film. We'll get hate mail over that. People don't go to BDRs to watch man floating in a river and American flag speedo.
The local people we have is Rob Kirby, along with Dan Shue and Ron West, who also helped develop this route.
My name is Rob Kirby. I was born and raised in Southern California, so this is my backyard. This is where I learned to ride motorcycles. When I found the BDR people, I started going to the fundraisers and just approached Paul with a map and some suggestions for a route, and they invited me to join the team. You know, this is what I love to do. I like to take people riding, and I like to guide. I like to show them, you know, I want to show you guys my state.
My name is Ron West. I'm a second-generation Californian. In fact, some of my fondest memories of exploring California have involved camping and dirt roads. So even though I'm fairly new at adventure riding, this just feels right at home.
Hello, I'm Dan Shu, and I'm the owner of BMW Motorcycles of Riverside. Our dealership has always been a proud sponsor of the BDR. We've been involved with it since its relatively early days. I'm looking forward to having everybody that rides the California BDR, check in with us and get the latest local information.
And then we have our special guest, Quinn Cody, who everyone should be really excited about getting to see him on this route, and we certainly are.
This is the biggest group we've ever had, so being the practical guy, I'm a little worried about logistics and how many flat tires a group of 13 can get.
You probably don't really know somebody unless you've spent like a week in a canoe or a BDR with them. So unless you've done either of those two things, choose your teammates wisely. So if you have a buddy who can cook well, is patient, knows how to fix a flat tire, and brings his own shit along so you don't have to carry it for him, that's the guy you want. If I had to choose like an orthopedic dentist, mechanic, cook, who's got a great attitude.
I'm excited to ride with, such a big number of people. It's going to be fun. We've got Quinn Cody here. He's been a long-term supporter of the BDR, but this is the first time we've got him on one of the expedition films, so I'm very glad to see that come together.
I currently work for KTM in research and development. Big part of my job is developing dual sport bikes, things like that for KTM. I also have a background in off-road racing, so I grew up as a desert racer in Southern California, eventually went on to race in Baja. Had quite a bit of success down in Baja racing the 1,000, 500, I've won those races a few times. And then I went on to do the Dakar Rally. KTM's involvement in the BDR, it really aligns up very well with our core values and, just the fact that the BDR is helping to establish and protect routes for our customers to get out and ride their motorcycles, and that's the most important thing.
I think what makes this an important route for us is, number one, it's in Southern California, which is the mecca for off-road riding. Most of the motorcycle manufacturers are down here. All of the off-road racing teams are down here. This is the epicenter of off-road riding in America.
We just wanted to go over a few kind of the road rules since we have such a large group. There are some things we want to make sure that when we come to a Y or an intersection, we do a signal. So when you see a guy, you give him the hand pump, and when you see him give the hand pump, you give it back, and you acknowledge that you're passing the chain on.
There's a lot of erosion out here in the desert, and when it rains hard, and it'll make a lot of cuts across the road. So if you're on a long straight road with lots of divots in it, just always ride to the high side, the uphill side of the road, because generally when the water flows across, it'll cut the low side of the road out, and that's where you're gonna hit a big ditch or a big washout. So, just be cognizant, try to read the terrain. It'll probably take you guys a couple days to learn how everything develops in the desert, and those of you that aren't from here. So, just take your time and develop those skills.
We're gonna have a great day. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So let's get it going.
So today we left out of Little Picacho, rode along the Colorado River, some really scenic, really beautiful stuff.
When you travel close to the Mexican border along the Colorado River, it's just quite stark, the contrast between that green that just hugs the riverbanks, and then just outside of that, maybe 50 or 100 yards, is this just stark desert terrain.
We turned inland at Indian Pass Road, and Indian Pass starts out as a really deep sand wash for about 8 miles.
I would say the Southern California route is for the more advanced BDR riders. This should not be someone's first ride. You have to like riding sand, you have to be comfortable riding up loose rocks. There's not a ton of that, but there is some of it, and so you have to be comfortable with that and hopefully enjoy that. The in-between stuff is really good. I think most people could ride a lot of this route, but there are some sections that are really tough.
The first day is always difficult because you're not used to riding a bike and being thrown right into probably one of the most technical sections of the route. It was pretty difficult. When you drop the bike, you kind of lose momentum. you overheat. You know, my heart was pumping a lot. It was difficult. From what I heard, the California BDR is the hardest route of all we have. I'm a little bit scared. You know, my number one goal is to not get hurt and hopefully have fun in the long run.
Great job.
Yeah, thanks. It's kind of exciting, you know. Yeah. Once you get going, it's okay, but some sections are really deep.
Whenever I ride in the sand, I lock my fingers straight, and so I can't turn the throttle off, and it just kind of helps me modulate. So when I go to shut the throttle, I can't close it fully, so it's always about a quarter throttle, and that really helps you in the sand. When you go to stop, always just pull in the clutch and coast to a stop instead of letting off the throttle, because the bike will actually roll to a stop rather than, you know, when you let off the throttle, the thing just buries the front end in the sand and you're squirrely.
I got myself out of breath on that.
It was really tough, and I dropped my bike. When I picked it up, I popped out a rib, and that's going to be my challenge.
Today we had to ride Dan 2 up to get him out of the sand, and guys rode back and rode his bike out. That's part of adventure riding, is working as a team and getting through somewhere.
Long time off the bike, last couple years with events in my life, so not quite where you know, my mind thinks I am. So but it'll be fine. That was definitely the hardest piece that we got to get through.
First leg of this trip is gonna filter some people out. You got to be ready for sand and be prepared.
So I think if you're considering doing a BDR, the big thing is preparation. You know, I think bike preparation, body preparation, making sure you've got plenty of water, things like that are really the key factors to, you know, completing a BDR like this one.
To prepare for this trip, I took an off-road riding course. I do a lot of yoga and you know, weight training, and then making sure you've practiced riding with a fully loaded bike is very important before you take on a BDR.
Adventure riding is kind of similar to a Dakar-style rally. You have to think about conserving your body, conserving the bike. There's not someone that's going to come retrieve you or fix your bike for you. So you know, you really have to be conscious of the fact that you're on your own.
After the sand wash had opened up, we had some high-speed stuff, some kind of flying through the desert.
Felt very good to be out of the sand and hit the pavement and just get a little bit of fresh air.
Felt like we covered some distance after this morning where we wasted a lot of time not getting anywhere. A couple of helicopters came through. Yeah, they were only, what, 200 feet off the ground, maybe, something like that, pretty low.
For a minute there, I thought maybe we were riding onto a military bombing range or something, and had to look at the GPS to make sure we were on the right track.
All the miners came down this trail, took all their burros and their gear and everything. And there was a guy named Bradshaw built a ferry to go across the untamed Colorado River back in the day. And I think he was the only guy that got rich out of that little thing. Wow.
You missing something?
I guess so.
Pannier.
I lost the whole Pannier. So
consider me the lost and found.
What are you guys doing?
You missed all the riding tip symposium.
I took a power nap.
We just rode past the Blythe Intaglios. From the air, you actually can tell what they are, that they're actually works of art. In fact, they were discovered in 1931 by a pilot flying over. And what the experts tell us is that approximately 900 AD, Native Americans living along the Colorado River discovered that they could rake or scrape the surface of the earth and reveal a lighter hue of rock underneath. What's fascinating about these is that these geoglyphs are also very similar to those found on the southern coast of Peru. The difference is that those are massive in scale. But it's interesting to note that with the geoglyphs being so similar. Is it possible that these ancient peoples were in communication with one another? Kind of hard to believe given the distances between Peru and what is now Southern California.
Tonight's campsite is wedged in between two wilderness areas. It's not the flattest spot we've ever had, super remote, but I think it's very typical of what you should be getting into on a BDR. You're not going to KOAs, you're not going to Motel 6. You're going until you find a flat spot with a good view. That's totally what we have, minus the flat spot a little bit, but it's dry, the mountains behind us, sun's going down, it's beautiful.
I mean, realistically, you live here in Southern California, you're able to get out to the desert really quickly, spend, a day or two on the BDR route. You don't have to do the whole BDR, but you can get out on a weekend and do 2 days of camping out here and ride some of the cool places and check out some of the locations that we're seeing here, and then, be at home at work on Monday.
I haven't looked at my phone, I haven't checked emails in days, I haven't read the news. It's really just about finding gas, finding food, and just, going out and exploring the best off-road tracks you can find.
You feel such a sense of accomplishment, especially after a day like this. And it's just so great to come into camp, grab something to drink, and sit around campfire with your friends.
Today we're going to head out of this great canyon which we stayed in last night, and we go out to the highway and run about, I think, 10 miles up to our turnoff where we're going to head out into the desert. We're going to be going on a road that goes right in between two wildernesses, and it's a pretty high-speed road, a little two-track, a lot of fun out in the middle of nowhere.
California has over 30,000 miles of dirt roads and trails, so the difficulty in putting together this route was not what to include, but what we would necessarily have to exclude.
We're trying to find roads that are okay for motorcycles with license plates to travel on, but we're surrounded by these beautiful protected lands, and so you really feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, and it's pretty special.
In a lot of areas, when the wilderness areas were created, they had the good sense to go ahead and just cut a little ribbon of area that is outside of the wilderness area so the road can go through. You want to make sure that you don't travel on either side of those roads because the only way that we can continue to travel those is if there's not damage. So when you travel through that area, make sure you stay on the road. But it's a wonderful legacy to be able to travel those areas that are now wilderness.
Just the stark beauty of the desert is stunning every time I go out. The big geology, the big vistas, the big landscapes, mixed in with a lot of just weird stuff that you find in the desert, left over from the gold rush days and the mining days and everything else. It's like there's always a surprise every time we go out.
There's some stuff back here that we run across that you think, God, someone lived here or someone mined here, and how did they survive in these situations? Because it's barren.
Road got a little sketchy back there. Yeah. Thanks for marking out that wash.
I was doing my sentence there. Did you see me going?
I did see you. Bike's way more stable when you're under power, so you just slow down while the traction's good, and then once you see you can get through the wash, you just get on the throttle, and it's way more stable.
Got to ride through a little town called Essex. That town was actually established when the railroad went through. It was one of the few places that they could actually get water, and I believe that the Automobile Club actually put the well in to offer water for travelers on Route 66.
My favorite part of this whole ride is the Mojave Preserve. If you don't have the time to do the whole route and you want to see some really epic stuff, go do the Mojave Preserve section. And it'll be nice to ride in that area because you'll be able to get up out in the elevation, out of the heat. And we'll ride through some Joshua Tree forests.
I just love riding through Joshua trees. I don't know what it is, but it just sort of gets your juices flowing, and it's just something you just don't get to do every day.
That's the best adventure bike road ever.
That was fun, huh?
That's so good.
Like you came over that rise and all of a sudden it's like, nice graded road, open the bike up, don't have to fight the sand. Let the bike just work between my legs, and it was great. It was so much fun. Cobwebs off this bad boy.
That was so much fun. I love that we're getting more into green and that, riding among the Joshua trees and mountains in the background, blue sky, it's perfect. And it was pretty fast.
Pulling into these mountains here, this is just unbelievable. It's so beautiful and so different from what we've ridden in the past.
Anybody that knows about the Mojave Road comes up here to this place. I think this trip, you need to camp it. And we found a really, really nice camp spot. Granite formations around us, big flat area, really nice campfire pit already set up.
Yeah, yesterday we left the Colorado desert. Now we're in the Mojave Desert. Today we'll ride out and we'll actually ride past the true Mojave Trail. You'll see the wagon ruts off to the distance. Yeah. So, is everybody ready? Sure. All right.
When the Mojave Preserve was created, anyone that was living in the area that became the preserve had to exit. So you'll find that a lot of old buildings, old businesses that basically can no longer exist because this is now a national preserve. Now, this is Bert Smith's cabin, and he built it in 1929. He was a World War I veteran, and the World War I soldiers were exposed to poison gas. And so their doctors felt that if they came out in a dry climate like this, that they would do better with their respiratory issues, and he lived a long life out here. It's hard to imagine that people came out here and lived their lives amongst the rock and virtually no water. Hard life.
So we go through this Joshua Tree forest over to this place called the Death Valley Mine. Old mine, old house, two-story house out there.
Right there, yeah. Kelso over there.
There's Kelso Dunes. Did you see the wagon ruts over there? That is the Mojave Road.
I can't imagine living out here in this heat.
Well, can you imagine going across the Mojave Trail in a wagon? If you broke down out here, you had to bring everything with you. It's not like, you're gonna change a tire, change a tube. They had to build a wheel with what they had.
When we got to the section with the Joshua trees, they were kind of in tight on the trail. It made it look really cool. You couldn't see very far ahead of you, but had a nice flow, twistiness to it, kind of up and down through some washes. A little bit of sand, but it wasn't like the sand wash from day one. It was really fun.
Yeah, definitely the highlight so far. This was the best road. Nice and tight, twisty. I kind of the switch in my brain flipped into desert race mode there for a minute.
This is what the Mojave is all about. This is stunning.
It is so fun, so beautiful. You gotta have to duck under the trees. It's amazing.
Today was my favorite day so far just because the terrain got a little bit tighter. We're dodging Joshua trees and come over this rise and there's this ditch. I knew instantly, I was like, this is gonna hurt. For a second, I was like, I think I got this, and stayed on the gas, and then it stepped out another time and I drove it straight into the ground. I tried to wheel it over that hole and it just launched, man. The bike got scratched up a little bit, but those are the sacrifices. So my streak for not tearing up a KTM loaner bike has, yep, we'll have to start counting over the days now.
I don't have any historical knowledge of this place whatsoever. It's an old building in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
There is not much out here in the desert. The few things that we've seen are primarily mines, but really that's about it. It's just kind of wild lands and some good roads and few signs from, you know, bygone era.
I'm pretty proud of this route. I think it's getting better. Every day it gets better. Today, that road to the Death Valley Mine, that was their favorite road. Now we're into higher elevation and it's a little bit greener and it's just changing every day.
You know, we've ridden, you know, pieces of this over the years, and I would say, you know, going back 6 years, I went back through my tracks for the last 6 years, and we had so many options, but I think in the end, we got a nice trip. It's doable from a distance point of view, and it's turned out to be, I think, a really great representation of what Southern California, you know, riding in the desert's all about.
So this cross has a storied history that involves no less than 3 acts of Congress and the U.S. Supreme Court. Originally constructed in 1934 by a veterans group to honor those killed in World War I, pretty much just sat here, you know, out here in the desert until 1999 when an individual asked the Park Service he could put up a Buddhist memorial along with the Christian cross. And in denying that application, the Park Service also signaled they were going to remove the cross. Well, when the veterans group heard this, they approached their congressman, and Congress passed a law that basically told the Park Service they could not use any federal funds to remove the cross. So anyway, it works its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ultimately rules in favor of the veterans group, but in the meantime, the cross is gone. Somebody steals the cross, right? It's not even here. So then finally, in 2012, the cross is found over 500 miles from here and re-erected. So all this activity over a cross that sits out in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
In the morning, Rob Kirby told us that there's going to be a slightly technical climb. I feel pretty confident riding in the sand and gravel, but the rocky uphills is kind of my pet peeve. The climb ended up being very difficult. You know, when Rob Kirby says something is slightly technical, take it, you know, that it's going to be an advanced section, and it really was.
It started out good, and then it got tough and challenging. A lot of the technical rocky uphills, you really have to remain light on the bike, not give too much input to the handlebars, and really kind of steer the bike with the foot pegs. And you know, if you start to get tired or fatigued, sometimes the technique goes out the window, and then guys start dog paddling and putting their feet down, and then that just makes the bike handle really poorly.
you come from a small bike background, then you're not going to be used to the weight. You're not going to be used to the way the bike handles. There's a lot of things to get in your way. There's a lot of things to crush legs. You know, if you tip a big bike over and it's a little bit of a downhill, it's a chore to keep it up and pick it up. So just like any motorcycle riding, it's dangerous, and you got to be aware of that and ride accordingly.
A lot of embedded rocks. It was really hard to control the direction of your bike and maintain traction. So it's really hard to keep your momentum, and it's very, very long. So a few of us made it to the top. A few of us haven't showed up yet. So we sent a few people down to help the other folks out to see what the holdup is.
I wanted to prove to myself that I can hang on with the best of them and show my kids, and especially my daughter, that if you put your mind and your heart to something and you persevere, you can get through it. You know, after 4 or 5 falls, you start feeling pretty defeated, but I wasn't going to let that hill defeat me.
It was so hard, and I fell so many times, but I never gave up. Oh, I just want to cry right now. I conquered it, but it was so hard.
That is hard. That's the hardest part of,
yeah.
probably besides the washes, that is probably the hardest part of the whole ride.
You said it was slightly technical climb, while it turned out to be advanced plus climb.
Well, I think it was.
I saw your eyes when you went by. They were like about
I was
this
crying,
big.
and so
This
they
big.
were big because they were red.
Yeah.
What's hard to you is really hard to me, and what's hard to me,
It's easy for me.
Well, there's some.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
So we came up on this big mine and we rode down to the center of it. It was pretty rocky and rugged and pretty expansive and huge. We got to the bottom of it and there was this sort of emerald green water.
Yeah, the Colosseum was pretty amazing. That, it's a huge pit mine, and it spirals down to the bottom, and there's a big lake in the bottom, and it's just, the water's super clear, and you have to be 700 feet down in the bottom of the thing, and it's a pretty incredible experience to ride a motorcycle down into that thing.
They said it might have arsenic in it or something, so we were scared to go swimming in it, even though it looked really refreshing. And then we turned around and kind of spun back out of there, but it was pretty, quite the sight to see.
So the group's done a good job. They've been getting through. Some of them are having their struggles. We've had a few hard technical sections that they've had to really work to get through, but they're hanging in there. I think a lot of them are pretty physically tired right now, but we're gonna all work together as a team and get to the end.
We are in the Kingston wilderness, right off Colosseum Mine Road. We're just outside of Tecopa Hot Springs. We're camping here for the night.
We are on our 4th day dry camping. No showers, not really any running water, so we're definitely feeling crusty and grimy, but it's just so fun being out here. We're the only ones, out here, and so we have it to ourselves. It's really green and beautiful, so it's been really nice Mojave desert riding.
This is where I think the California South BDR is going to start to come to life, and it's going to just unfold before us now over the next couple days.
All the BDRs are very different. You know, they have their own difficulties and different sceneries. This one was probably a little bit closer to the Arizona BDR in terms of the challenging terrain and sand and rocky sections. You know, it is definitely a desert route, so the scenery doesn't change as much as even it changed in Arizona, but it's a beautiful route, you know, in itself, and people should definitely try it. You know, this particular route has been many years in the making, and I think this is a completely new and untapped territory for us in terms of, you know, how many people this route can attract, not only from the United States, but from all around the world. Because, you know, when people think about the United States, probably one of the first things they think is, you know, the state of California. It's big, it's interesting, and even though you might think, you know, that it's overpopulated, I'm pretty sure we're going to get into some parts of the state that are completely uninhibited and will be really out there, you know, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I think the route is just going to be a spectacular route. It's not going to be easy, and you know, people need to be prepared for different weather. Probably one of the big things is that it's so remote, and that was one of our goals, and I think we accomplished that goal in a big way. But you know, you may need to be prepared for that, taking a spot or better yet, some, you know, satellite phone or two-way pager, because I think the majority of the days we just simply didn't have cell phone coverage in many of the areas that we were. So you absolutely cannot rely on your cell phone to call for help if you need it. It is gone. I could have one more and take a long nap.
The group is staying here. We should have enough beds for everyone. There's a house that we've got 3 rooms in that we can do, plus all these little individuals, and they're pretty nice. They're air conditioned, they're nice rooms.
When we first pulled in, I thought, oh man, what are we doing out here in the middle of the desert? My trailer has a cactus painted on the side of it. Smells like asbestos, but it turns out the barbecue is awesome. Brewery, the people are really nice, live music. I'd come here again, actually.
It's hot.
Is it?
It's hot.
Yeah. Oh, that does burn.
No, it does feel good though.
Does it? Yeah, that's hot.
Oh my God.
No problem.
Oh.
It's like roasting lobsters.
Yeah.
Oh.
We had to go visit Walmart and get a couple of new air mattresses. So I did Bradshaw a favor and bought him an $8 air mattress from Walmart. So,
I mean, he's my new best friend for buying me that new air pad. I've been sleeping in the dirt all week long. My pad hasn't worked since night 1.
lo and behold, Jimmy Lewis tracked us down in his hometown in Pahrump. He must have heard that through his network that we rolled into town.
I helped a lot with the route on the Nevada one, just because I know the area, and then in California, Paul probably just wanted to keep me out. So, since I'm from Nevada now, but it's close. I mean, the routes are, they get kind of close, but they're trying to develop a nice, winter route. So, look at this. This is the winter for us, and it's not even cold. It's 60 degrees in the morning, so it's perfect.
The riding's been fantastic. The kind of in-between experiences, the people and the culture and the random stuff has been, I guess, less than other BDRs so far. Although now that's starting to change with places like this, and even China Ranch yesterday was really cool.
Wasn't that fun yesterday?
Yeah, so yeah. A little desert adventure in the middle of nowhere, live music, a violin,
and a guitar.
And a guitar. Fun.
You know, like that's one of the things I learned in my travels in South America. If you pull into town and the locals are inviting you to go somewhere, even if you're like really tired and don't feel like doing it, do it, because usually like these are the most authentic and interesting and memorable experiences of your trip.
Yeah, you can go to bed early anytime.
And we're headed to Shoshone. You need to gas up and get any water that you need. You don't need to get breakfast for tomorrow until we get to Beatty. That's where you'll get your last-minute stuff for the next morning and your snacks for the next day.
Just as we were entering Death Valley today, we went through a pretty short patch of sand, only a couple 100 meters long, but it was really soft. It was like some kind of dune sand.
I was feeling pretty confident going into the sand, but I hit a rock or something, just flew over the handlebars, hit my lip in the helmet, so I got a fat lip now, completely took off my windscreen. Even the mirror broke off, which never happens. I'm okay, thank God for good gear. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That got this old man's heart rate up. I tell you what, I never would have made it through if it weren't for the fact I got to put on clean socks and underwear this morning. So,
yeah, this section is tough, but it's not very long. I mean, maybe a quarter mile long, something like that, half mile at the most. You can get through it with teamwork, you know, help your colleagues out.
You know, I was taught that you have to kind of get on the handlebars and up front. Well, Quinn Cody said, you know, go down, like really back, and have your, you know, very loose on the handlebars. So actually that helps. After he said that, that second section was much better for me.
Yeah, you want your weight back so that front wheel stays on top of the sand. You don't want it to dig in.
Yeah.
And stay on constant throttle helps keep that up.
Everyone kind of seized up and struggled a little bit, but everybody made it through okay, and hopefully, you know, they learned a few lessons. We made it up a little further north and got to see some pretty diverse terrain. You know, we rode through Death Valley today, and you know, one of the most bizarre places on the planet probably, and you know, just the sheer scope of how big Southern California is really becomes apparent when you start to come this far north. Some of the geology in Death Valley is incredible, and it's really truly bizarre just to think of what a strange place it is. You're riding along and it's hard to focus on the road because you're looking up at the mountains and these just big, steep, jagged mountains and a salt lake bed that has crystal formations in the middle of it. It's a really incredible place. Today, going through Death Valley, it was on the verge of being extreme and, you know, almost to the point of being dangerous. That's something that you really need to be cognizant about when riding these routes, is making sure that you check the weather and you're not going into something that could possibly, you know, hurt you, because, you know, heat is one of the biggest dangers to riding in this desert.
Dehydration can kill you quicker than you can imagine. So when you're out here, you need to be drinking twice as much water as you do normally. You need to be packing what you think you normally take and then double that and keep that with you. Once you get dehydrated, you can get very sick and you can die. And out here in this heat, with no shade, no cover, you don't have anywhere to get out of it.
And twisty, and it's like the color of money down here. Green.
Titus rocks, man.
It's epic. That's nice that we got that little bit of rain, just a little bit to settle the dust. And
crazy cool road. Bitchin', I think, is either Edward Abbey or Muir that said that.
But it kind of reminds me of something you find in Baja, and it's one way, so traffic can only go one direction, so really cool road. We had the opportunity to ride through Titus Canyon today, and I've ridden and raced all over the world, and there's only a handful of places like it. Deep canyon with these huge walls up on the side, and you can see that when the water flows through there, it's violent.
Yeah, this is just one of my favorite places. It never gets old, and it's different every time. A little bit of rain on part of it gave us nice sheen and some good color, and settled the dust on half of the ride. It was just spectacular.
Everybody's a little bit tired, a little bit stinky, a little bit sweaty. But we're in an awesome spot in Death Valley. We had an awesome ride today. Now we're just enjoying some sunset and some cooking.
Today's going to be one of our harder days. We leave here and go up towards the racetrack. We'll be kind of fast going through there. Then when we're going to go down Lippincott Pass, which can be a little rocky and rutty, so watch out for that. Keep your speed down so we don't have any accidents there. Then we're going to go up over Sierra Gordo, up to the mine, and then down to Lone Pine, fuel up, and into Alabama Hills for our final campsite. Which will be a really cool site. That's a beautiful spot if you haven't ever been there before.
As the most populous state in the Union, a lot of people just don't think that California has the type of topography and terrain and backcountry that we actually have. And when you get outside of the main cities like San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, there's a lot of terrain out here that very few people go.
How long have you been living on the road like this?
About 5 years. I mean, I put it together 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You can see all this junk I have on here. These are high-lows, so I can have the lows on and the highs on, and just all kinds of junk. This is a brand new one. I just put this on.
What's the secret behind that?
Just to keep it from getting stuck to the thing and keep them from all the sunlight, ozone.
Oh, we were just talking about different kinds of adventures, and he was telling me he used to do adventure motorcycling in Mexico a long time ago.
How I hit a guy head on one time. Another time I went off a cliff. Just all kinds of adventures. But all I had was my saddlebags and some food in it. That was about it. So I guess it's adventure. Well, my theory is if you don't risk your life each day, you've wasted the day. Too many people just got stuck working and working and working and working. And then by the time they retire, they're too old to do anything. Might as well do it when you're young and take the time off.
So we made it to Tea Kettle Junction, and the road getting out here is punishing.
This road is so washboard that it just rattles, and I had my front headlight guard, one of the screws backed out. I went through the whole bike last night and tightened everything up, and I had several parts just come loose, but it's a rattle trap.
You know, there are roads that are a joy to ride and really fun, and then there are roads that are just really unpleasant, just punishing. And OEM companies are looking for a place to test their motorcycles to see if they'll stay together. That would be the best road to test them on.
It's really cool for me to see from an R&D perspective, to see what these bikes go through when you're riding them down these beat up desert roads and these high temperatures, and it gives me a good perspective for product development. You know, when I go back and talk to Austria, I can tell them like, hey, this, you know, the loads on these bikes is beyond anything you guys ever expected or accounted for. So, you know, it's really cool. But then on the other hand, it's cool to see how well the bikes hold up. I mean, I'm very impressed with how all of our bikes, we've really had very little in the way of mechanicals so far. So, you know, I'm, knock on wood, pretty stoked on the way that the bikes have held together.
I got here, got off my bike, I'm checking things, making sure all the bolts are tight, and then all of a sudden I realized, wait, I'm missing my Pannier. That sucks. It sucks because we just went 26 miles. It could be anywhere between here and 26 miles.
You go through your bike along the way, you know, don't just take off on the ride and think that your bike's gonna make it to the end, you know, go through it every night, check nuts and bolts, things like that, because a mechanical out in the desert like this can be a big problem.
You got to see the Racetrack Playa. You got to see the moving rocks.
For a long time, it was unknown what actually moves the rocks, but some scientists a number of years ago sat out here virtually all winter, and they figured out exactly the right sequence and the right events that have to occur to get the rocks to move. First, what has to happen is the playa has to fill with water, but not too deep, just enough. Then we have to have a freeze event where the water in the playa freezes, but it can't freeze too much. Then we have to have a warming trend so that it breaks up the plains of ice, but not so hot that it melts the ice. Then we have to have a wind event, and what happens is the plains of ice are moved by the wind. The wind then pushes the rocks in front of the plains of ice. The rocks then drag along the mud of the playa, creating the racetracks.
The racetrack is just a strange place. You just got to be there to experience it.
So it looks like you got your Pannier back.
I did get my Pannier back. I'm happy now. I've got my Wolfman bag back, and I've tightened everything up, and now I know to kick back there about every 2 miles just to make sure it's there. Where we are now is Lippincott Pass. No tow service, so don't expect to get towed out.
Don't you have a tow strap?
I got a tow strap.
Okay, I got tow service.
All right. Just take that one rough wrong, and boom. I've been down this before, and it'll test your abilities.
No, this is really cool. This is some of the neatest stuff I've ridden. There's a lot of little technical rock crawling sections and old mines and stuff to check out. So this is a really cool area.
This will be a more advanced ride through here. Pretty technical, had a little rock garden, had a couple oh-shoot moments.
Lippincott was a challenge, and it was pretty darn rocky in spots. Glad to get through there without any issues, and all the hard work is coming to a culmination, and the ride is coming to an end, and I've just felt stronger every day, and the last few days have just been spectacular for me. Yeah, that was pretty fun. There's a couple points where you just have a plan about 3 turns ahead, and just an amazing view from the top. It's just, can never forget that one.
We're about to drop down into Saline Valley, which is a place I've been before, but I've never come down this direction. So it's cool to find other ways into areas.
Section was one of the hardest sections I've ever ridden in my life, followed by one of the most fun sections I've ever ridden in my life. At the bottom, big embedded rocks, kind of some riverbeds. some steep, loose uphill sections. It was really hard to keep going, hard to pick the right line. Sometimes the road would fork off into just a riverbed that you didn't want to go on. So, but then once it settled out, it just was this really smooth, buff 2-track going up the mountain, and it was just killer.
Let me take you up to the other museum to show it to you.
Of all the paths you take in life, make sure a few of them are dirt.
The main mine is behind us, behind that big tailing pile. It's 1,175 foot straight down. There's the map to it. You ever want to get lost? There's where you can get lost. 50 miles of mine below us.
Those are all the
all the connectors. When electricity came here in 1916 during the Gordon era, Cerro Gordo had 4 eras, not like Bodie, one long era and boom, we're dead, arrested decay. This one's always had to upgrade and put back together. But this was 1915. The store was built in 1915. That thing that looks like a church, get that completely out of your mind. There never was a school, church, or jail up here. That was a garage mule barn combination built in 1915 by Gordon, the fancy house. And when Jody passed away, her husband Mike started to make a memorial chapel and movie theater out of that, and it never got finished.
Just outside of Lone Pine in the Alabama Hills, below Mount Whitney and in the high Sierras. So some fresh snow up there, looks great, and it's going to be just a spectacular view all the way along this mountain range. You know, it's really emotional to come to the end of a trip like this, and you just don't get to see all this stuff, you know, all at one time, you know, very often in your life. So you got to really appreciate it when you get the chance.
In the Alabama hills was absolutely stunning. We were camping among these crazy rock formations with the Sierra Mountains in the background. It was probably one of the most stunning places I've ever camped at.
Well, it's Monday morning. I don't know what the rest of the world is doing, but we're here in this beautiful campground, looking at the mountains, getting ready to go ride motorcycles.
I'm stoked to get back out and do this again. You know, I've got some good experience now, so I kind of can fine-tune my packing methods and fine-tune all my gear and stuff. So I'm excited to get home and clean everything up and, you know, get ready for the next adventure.
I enjoyed this so much that it's sad, but there'll be another one soon, so you just look forward to that. But we have one more day of riding, and that's good.
I'm really glad we waited this long to do California because it's such a magnificent state, and it's good that we didn't make this our first one. You know, we've really, as an organization, we've grown. We have a lot more resources, a lot more followers. You know, a lot more relationships with the land managers and things like that. So I think it was good that we waited this long to do this one. I think we can really do California the right way, really give it justice for what the potential is for an off-road route here in California.
I think this California BDR, it surprised me in a lot of ways. It wasn't what I expected. It was quite a bit different. Just the diversity of the terrain, how much terrain there is in Southern California is really incredible. You kind of forget. I've ridden motorcycles all over the world, and I still am in awe of how much of this terrain is right in our backyard.
We're going to head over towards Manzanar, and we're going to pick up my good buddy Chris from Rottweiler.
Chris, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, how are you? How are you? Good to see you. Where's Justin?
Well, We just left camp and we were going in a road and he hit a rock or something and hurt his leg.
What? I thought I broke my leg at first. It was really kind of scary. And this morning, tagged a rock, blew my foot off the peg and messed my Achilles up a little bit or something. I don't know. I haven't had it looked at yet.
Rob is taking him out and Rob Kirby had to leave for family emergency, so we just lost three team members.
So, welcome to the BDR.
Yeah. That's what's left of the BDR.
Really, half the people I already know are out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, my name is Chris Parker, and I'm the owner and founder of Rottweiler Performance, and we do performance accessories for KTMs, Husqvarnas, a lot of adventure bike stuff. I haven't spent a lot of my adult life riding in the United States, really. A lot of it's been racing and riding in Mexico. And to be able to have access and a guide through California is a very cool experience for me.
So for now, we're just going to explore Manzanar, the internment camp from World War II, and learn a little history.
Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, there was this underlying fear and hatred that ran through the psyche of the American public that somehow certain American citizens, just by virtue of their ancestry, could somehow rise up against fellow Americans, against their government in acts of violence and sabotage, espionage. And this fear became so pervasive that in 1942, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066 that allowed the government to reach in and extract Japanese American citizens from their homes and businesses and communities, load them into buses and trains and cart them off to godforsaken places like this to be housed behind barbed wire and armed guard. And it's my hope as we walk these paths, as we spend some time in the tar paper barracks where they're housed, that we come away from this place with a renewed sense of justice, so that when we see injustice or bigotry or hatred, we call it out, because unfortunately, history has a really bad habit of repeating itself if we don't study it.
I can hobble. I can't really flex and move, but
Tore your Achilles, that's not a good situation. Let's hope it's not that.
yeah, let's hope it's not.
Take a tip, Sam.
It's since healed up, just a little tingly and can't walk real well. So made it that close. I missed the very last section, but I feel like I've seen most of what California has to offer in this trip, so I'm pretty satisfied.
We're going to cross the highway right here. We're going to go across. We're going to go up to the Reward Mine, and we'll still go as a group. Fast guys up front again, and then we'll head across to the canyon, and that's where we'll split up into our two groups.
It's a big mine shaft. It looks like people drive cars in there.
We went up into this mine in this hill called Reward Mine, and I followed Quinn in there, and I didn't realize it until I was about halfway in this mine, but my headlights weren't working. And so the only time I could ever see was when they would actually tap their brakes and I could see red light on the ground.
I was borderline having anxiety riding into this thing because we were almost a half a mile deep in the earth.
We actually rode way down in this shaft, and it was a really neat experience. If you're claustrophobic, I would probably not go in there. But once you get down in there, stop, turn your bike off, and shut the lights off, and you're in for a little bit of a interesting experience.
This is terrifying. Okay, I've had enough. I want out.
If my bike wouldn't have restarted, I don't think I could have found my way out of that thing.
It's definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's a hell of a way to find out your headlights don't work. I tried a new switch here that apparently isn't working, so I got in there and it was like, something feels kind of weird, and then the guys got ahead of me a little bit. I'm like, okay, now I know what it is.
This was the first mine in the Owens Valley, gold mine. So they mined gold and silver here.
Wow.
I think it started in about the 1860s.
Was it prosperous?
Yeah, this one was.
We're splitting up the groups from here on. The hot shots are going to go do the expert only, and then the rest of us normal people are going to go the opposite on the main part of the route.
Today we rode some of probably my favorite terrain. We went up into the high elevation, we got up into the cedar trees, rode up through an ancient bristlecone spruce forest, and we were up over 10,000 feet at one point, and then we did this crazy descent down into Bishop, where we dropped from 10,000 feet down to, I think, 3,000 feet.
Most of this particular ride is actually not very hard, except it's peppered with short sections of very, very difficult terrain. So there'll be like some switchbacks going up these mountains with some really jagged rock or really steep, or some loose shale and that kind of thing. We even came down off a mountain where there was a curve about a couple feet. I would say this is more of an advanced route. So if you don't consider yourself that kind of rider, I would probably avoid this route, or at least go in, take a look, and if it starts getting difficult, turn around and come back out the same way. But some absolutely spectacular views. We got to the top of some of these mountains, and where we were sitting, it's like 70 or 80 degrees, and we're literally looking straight across the valley, and you can see these snow-capped mountains that are just absolutely gorgeous that work their way all the way down the valley. And then coming off the mountain, really steep drop. We've heard stories of guys on big bikes literally cooking their brakes. So overall, it was a fantastic day, beautiful scenery, advanced route for sure here and there. So just be wary of that, and the rest is just beautiful.
People always are asking us, why don't we rate our roads? Why don't you give a rating on that? And for this reason and so many other roads on the BDR system, they change with the weather. They change with rainstorms. They change with temperature. One week we come through here and it's beautiful. The next week we come through and it's rutted and it's hard to ride through. So that is one reason we just can't rate the roads.
So here we are just a few miles north of Bishop, and we've come face to face with yet another example of Native American history, the fish slough petroglyphs.
They look just like rocks to me, and I'm thinking, why are we stopping here? But as the closer I was walking up, I noticed that there's all these drawings and petroglyphs all over the rocks. And the more you stop and look, and the more you go back further into the rocks, you just see more and more very unique drawings, and unlike any that I've ever seen before.
Just about the time you think this route has given all it could possibly give, it surprises one more time with a beautiful little ride through a slot canyon called Chidago. Chidago's no more than a breach in the walls of the Long Valley caldera on which we're now riding. And as the route exits the canyon, it turns north once again along an easy graded dirt road all the way into Benton. Benton was once a thriving little mining town. Now it's no more than a gas station, a little restaurant, and of course, our destination for the night, the historic inn at Benton Hot Springs. For a soak in the hot tub, a nice, cozy, warm bed, and ultimately, our goodbyes.
Riding out into Tecopa, where the water feeds my soul. Standing naked by the mud spring, watch Mother Nature drying in the sun. She's on my mind these days, not sure where she's going. She is in my heart. Love is unknowing.
more about Backcountry Discovery Routes, go to RideBDR.com.
If in your mind you know you want to finish it, you can persevere and do it, and nothing will defeat you.
I think is really special. You know, again, that's what the BDRs are about, is taking you to places that you normally wouldn't go.
Piece of advice for people looking to do this, be ready for sand. It's actually really fun. You can do it on these bikes, and you should. Just be prepared for it.
You know, this is a once-in-a-life opportunity, and I really wanted to be part of it, and I'm proud to be part of it.
What's the next trip, and who else can I bring on this ride and show them, you know, all the great things that we had a chance to see this week?
I'm hoping that people come away from this with a full understanding of all the different aspects that California has from a historical standpoint.
I really encourage you guys to get out and try a BDR. And camping off your motorcycle is something, until you've done it, you really won't understand.
It was a long day.
I heard.
Yeah.
Cold beer?
The time stands still in Tecopa, where the sun's fire's always burning. I drive northward in the morning, back to the past awaiting. Could I turn these wheels forever, away from embers fading, and return to the fire when the stars do align? Until then, Tecopa, you've left me feeling fine.